I've always been taught talent and perseverance will get you in the door, but your attitude and what you project out will keep you behind the door.
Hey party people, today I have in the studio a special guest. I have New York City based costume designer Shirlee Idzakovich.
Thank you.
I did pronounce that right.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
You did great. I'm so proud of you.
So I'm super excited you're here, and I've been posting on my social media, you know, give me all your costume design questions. This is a slightly different world than what I'm used to, so I had a lot of people writing questions, and I compiled a list of the most commonly asked questions because I think I got like 100 questions. However, here's my burning question.
Okay, I gotta hear this one. This is gonna be good.
Actually, someone did ask this, and when they asked it, I was like, oh, I want to know.
Okay.
What do you do when an actor doesn't want to wear what you made, or they want to start making changes?
Doesn't really happen on Broadway because the actor has no say-so in the costume unless it's a fit issue.
Yeah.
Or an allergic issue or an allergy to something. But that's all pretty much taken care of way ahead of time. But it doesn't really happen. They have no say-so in what they're wearing. It all falls on the director's shoulders. If there is someone that is a little diva-ish or just not willing to wear it or they're complaining about it, there's a little trick that I use. This is good too. Now they're all gonna know. We take the button off of a pair of pants, and because I can sew very quickly, we just move it over a couple inches. So when they go to put it on, they can't fasten them. Or, you know, I can put a zipper in a dress in like 3 minutes. So we take the whole zipper out, we move it over a couple inches, and then when they can't get it on, you know, then they come back and they're like, oh, I can't get it on. We're like, wow. I make them sit beside me while I'm fixing it. And that's usually when the issues come out about why they're acting a certain way. And it usually has nothing to do with the costume. Might have something to do with the show, might have something to do at home, something to do totally different from what we're even doing. Sometimes it has everything to do with the costume. Not my issue. In my world, I am very seldom giving carte blanche to say this is what you can do. It's usually this is what the director wants from you. And the interpretation can be left open. But by the time we get the costume on the person, it's been through 40 drafts, 20 rewrites, 20 reruns, 20 reworks. It's hours into it. So, and they've been fitted 10 times. So, but that's not a huge issue.
Okay, that's good.
Now on set, it might be a different ballgame, but there's so many shoppers on set that there's usually way more to work with than what it is in the theater world. Yeah. On set, you've got a huge big rack of 20 to pull from. So if they don't like it, we can pretty much go back. But it's always, it's like, if they don't like that one flannel shirt, it's the 20 other flannel shirts you get to choose from. Because that's what the director said.
So my most experience in costume was working for an opera house.
Which is huge.
And, oh my God, it was the time of my life.
Yeah.
And I know that, especially with smaller opera houses, you will borrow costumes and like only build for some shows.
Right.
And are there certain things that you do when building costumes so that it will fit a wider range of bodies or can adjust later for different actors?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Everything is built in with at least 2 to 4 inch seams.
Okay.
On both sides.
Okay.
So everything can be taken out. We can, especially for an opera house, they have so many different sizes and styles going in there and body, and no one is a perfect size. The perfect size for one show might be a 12. Perfect size for another show might be a 2. Perfect size for another show might be a 28. You just never know. So those seams allow it to go from a 2 to a 10 or 12 easily. You know, and it depends where the seams are. Vest always have the let out seams here. Depends on how the piece is made. Now, pants are a different ballgame. Anything that's cut in a pant, you probably can't go up and down that far, but you still do have the seams. And I know a lot of opera houses, they use Velcro big time because there's not very many quick changes in opera. So they don't need to pull off and snaps and Velcro and stuff. So I have seen a size 2 women's pant with the Velcro wrapped way around, and then they opened up to a size 10. So the side seams are completely open where they just put them on. It's like almost like those old track pants that had the snaps down it. You just snap them off and throw them open. But it had different sets of snaps on it.
Nice.
Yeah, but everything is made to fit open. At least a couple sizes. It has to be. Has to be because of bust measurements, waist measurements, hip measurements. Nobody is the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Luckily, one of the shows that we borrowed from was for Aida.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a lot of flowy ropes things.
Thank goodness that flow hid everything underneath.
All the things, yeah.
But, you know, working for an opera house is a whole new ballgame because everything is grand. Everything's on a grand scale.
It has to look good from really far away as well.
Yeah. It has to look grand from the front seat to 50 feet behind. And even 150 feet behind that if they have, you know, how many tiers they have in their theater.
It was like the first show. So what happened was I was interning at the costume design department of the opera house.
It's a big deal.
And then I would work backstage during the shows. And that was my first introduction to stage makeup. Because, you know, up close, it looks terrible.
Yeah.
Like thick lines with gray eyeliner and
Looks
stuff.
like a 3-year-old did it.
Yeah. And the first time I saw this young guy, but he had like all the wrinkles done on his face in stage makeup.
Which is a whole new genre. I mean, it is incredible what the makeup artist and the wig artist. I mean, because I've worked with many women that are in the wig field and they build their own wigs out. You know, they don't go buy stock wigs. Very seldom. They measure the head. They put it on a wig sewing machine. They sew around the wig sewing machine as placing it in.
There's special wig sewing machines?
Wig sewing machines, absolutely. And they're rounded and the sewing machine goes around it. It's incredible how they build the lines of that certain head out. I know. It's great to watch them. And you know, when you're first into it, you're watching and we're like, oh my heavens, they're so good. Look at that craft. But they're watching you too. They're like, oh my gosh, how did she do that? It's like, well, how did you do that? You know. And then you've got the makeup people that come in. And then, you know, there's this whole new thing on Broadway, which is artisan, which is not props, not costume. It's somewhere in between, which is amazing because, you know, when you have a big budget and the producers are like, well, that's a prop. And the prop people are like, oh, no, we don't want that in our budget. That's a costume. Costume people go, oh, no, that's not our budget. That's prop. So now the artisan has their own budget, which is amazing. So, yeah, but working backstage at opera, you learn quick how to dress, how to get
That's how
stage.
I learned how to. That's my first exposure to corsets, how they're built, how to lace them up. And when you're talking about sizes, it's like, like I was lacing up all the chorus ladies, and they were from a size 2. I was like tying up 50-inch waists.
Absolutely.
And and you just keep tying up, like I'll tie them tight, and then they'll start singing, and then they're like, I could go tighter. Yeah,
take me in just a little bit more. And you do. You got to pull those rungs and just pull them back together.
They want to look good on stage, just like anyone else. So.
Exactly. They don't want the heavy layers, and they want to be nice and sleek and slim. Yeah. But opera houses are fun.
So fun.
Oh, my gosh. Dude.
My favorite internship, hands down. Okay. So one of the most common questions I got was, what are the differences, the main differences between costume and fashion, especially in terms of design process?
Okay.
Because you have a fashion background
also.
Yeah,
absolutely. Oh, I worked in fashion for years. And even though there's such a thin line between the two of them, it depends on where your heart lies, whether you like the fashion or don't like the fashion. But in the design process, we're designing a costume that has to be washed 6, 7, 8 times a week. Has to be washed after every single performance. So it has to be durable and not washed over the course of a year. Say fashion, you know, you buy something at a super low budget store, it's not going to stand the test of time over the course of a year washing it 7, 8 times a week. It just won't do it. It'll fade out. It'll be pulled after a while. But if you buy a higher end, even having something dry cleaned that many times has its wear and tear on it.
The chemicals.
Oh, chemicals, absolutely. And so when you do it for the stage, the design process has to be very particular about not only the design, but also about the fabrics you're using. The baseline of any good costume is always going to have pure cotton underneath it, or a wicking fabric. It depends on how much they're dancing, how much they're going. And if they're wearing it a lot on stage, it has to be something that when it hits their body.
Don't hit your mic.
Oh God, I'm so sorry. It has to be something that when it hits their body, that the body is not going to hurt. It's not going to seep through to the outside of the costume. It has to be a barrier. Because sweat everywhere, because the stage lights are just insane. And they hit you. I'm not the spotlight person. I love being backstage. And when I do go to any kind of stage and I see those stage lights, I don't see how people stand in front of them. They're blinding. They're literally blinding. Yeah.
It's so funny because I'm working on this project where I'm going to be shooting for a different company instead of for myself.
Yeah.
And they asked me, like, you know, we're going to start a wardrobe for you. And then they're like, what size are you and all this stuff. And I told them, I was like, listen, I tend to sweat a lot on camera. So if you could just go for some natural fibers, that would be really great.
Right. Linen, hemp, cotton, anything in those lines would be perfect.
Those lights are so bright. Hot.
And they're right on them.
Ugh.
I mean, they're literally a couple feet away. And I don't see how they stand out there, because I would, within 3 minutes, I would just, because my average temperature that I love is like 63. Yeah, everything stays at 63. And my kids, they complain all the time. I'm like, no, put a sweatshirt on, put some socks on, stay at 63. But building out for theater, it's not so different, except we're not mass producing anything. We're only building that one set. So we can put the fine tunes, we can detail it a lot. We could add a little 2 or 3 things here that you would not add to a fashion piece, because the production line just could not do it and put it out there for cost.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because, you know, we're gonna do a blue blazer Spencer jacket, and we're going to line it with silk candy striped. Then we're going to add a notch collar, then add these gorgeous antique silver buttons. You know, and that's for one person on one scene. To produce something like that, there would have to be so many different sizes, because it's such a fitted piece, that I don't think that it would be valuable for anyone to produce it unless it was a couture line. You know, maybe one of the couture houses would put it together, but not for the stage. Couture's hard, and
they think it's so easy because you don't have all these production concerns. No, but it's really
couture
not.
Pieces take months, years. And you know, the other thing with the difference between costume design and fashion design, I think if you don't have a fashion background, you don't understand the fabrics as much as you do if you just have a costuming background.
Oh, so can you talk a little bit more about that, like education and kind of like how you get started? Because a lot of my students, they're like, well, I'm in fashion now, but I would like to transition to costume.
Right.
Like,
costume is more visual. You literally have to know how to render or sketch and then render out the piece, or at least to get your point across. You don't have to be the best sketch artist or renderer.
Are there a lot of programs in the U.S. for costume design?
There are.
But
there's some creme de la cremes. There are some universities that are just, I've seen kids come out of them and they could go right to work. But then I've seen some other programs where you're like, where did you go to school? You know, you have to say that.
Can you list some schools, or would you be uncomfortable with that?
Oh, no. I know some great schools. FIT probably has the most diverse costuming, because they have a 1 year that you can take the 1 year program and literally move right on and be a PA on any costume set.
Okay.
And so, you know, that's for the kid that truly, might not want to pull 4 years, might not have the money to pull 4 years, that just truly can't afford it. And I totally understand that. even those kids have the opportunity, because FIT's 1-year program, and I'm not promoting them. I mean, I'm not paid to do anything with them. I just know the program. And I know that they do a very good job of people that maybe were in fashion and costuming and for one reason or another either dropped out, maybe had to leave the program, maybe have been out for 5 or 6 years and still can't find a job. And they go back and get this 1-year degree. Because it is a bare bones, this is what you're going to be doing. And it's a whole new ballgame. But this Parsons, great fashion school. Not so much costuming. They do, I think they do a costume, but it's not way, FIT's is way more. And Webster in St. Louis, Cincinnati, CCM, fabulous costuming. Michigan, trying to think who else those are ones that I know. DePaul in Chicago, great. I've actually sent kids to these universities and said, and it has to be the right fit. Just because it's a great program, it might not fit your personality.
Right.
You might not want to go to a bigger school, which is fine. Find a nice little fashion school or costume school. I prefer someone who has a little fashion training because their knowledge of fabrics and the care of fabrics and understanding. Because when you ask someone to go swatch a green linen, maybe linen cotton, some costumers who don't have the background, they look at you like they're dead inside. They do.
Well,
I mean, some of
I
the
love you
interns.
saying this because I'm always telling my students, it's like fabric is the key to everything. And like everyone is like, even fashion designers, they'll ask me questions like, what's your favorite marker? What's your favorite paper? I'm like, there are so many good out there. Like, don't focus on that so much, okay? Focus on what is the best fabric for this kind of thing.
Right.
And what's the best fabric for this kind
How
of thing.
many options
and
do
like,
I have?
Go research fabric.
Fabrics.
It's like, you use whatever marker. Like, the brand of the markers doesn't matter.
Yeah, use Crayola. Move on.
Who cares?
But the fabric is what's going to make the item, make or break the item.
It's because we start with sketches that people...
They get stopped on that
They get stuck there, but it's like our final product is fabric. So our medium is actually fabric and not the paper. It's like...
Yeah. Now, you know why that your herringbone video in my apartment in New York City, we all tested each other.
Oh, the tweed one?
The tweed one, yeah. We're like, okay, we're going to watch it, then we're going to have a test. And we did. And it was like, all my kids are like, oh my gosh, Mom. I'm like, yeah. But my daughter who's in fashion, she knew every one of them. But now Kent State, where she went, fabulous fashion background. That's another one that's great. Kent State's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So you're saying that a lot of people can break into costumes straight from having a fashion degree?
Oh, absolutely. But you just have to understand the process. Because fashion is meant for full-scaled, full-out manufacturing. Costuming is one show, you love it for 4 or 5 months, and then it's dead to you. You move on. Like, I'm working...
And some people really like that.
Yeah, exactly. They're not in the same thing constantly. They don't do a standard kit set. We're going to do the full line, and we're going to build out the jackets and the skirts and everything. That's not what you do. You build out character by character.
Yeah.
And it's so different. But that's the only difference. But if you know fabrics, and you understand fabrics, and you can shop for fabrics, you're above the fold. Absolutely.
Did you hear that?
Above the fold.
That's what it is.
That's what it is. It is, because I don't have time to hold their hand to say, go source me out a blue rayon. I mean, literally, they look at you like, is that the brand? You're like, no, that's the fabric. And I know right there and right then, I can't even send them to go source it because it's a waste of time.
Another really popular question was, a lot of costume design involves period pieces and period research. So do you have a favorite way to go about that research? Any books you would recommend or websites? Like, what's your process on period work?
Okay. Even not, and period work also means 1970s. Yeah. 1950s, 1980s. when I'm giving a script or a show, I can spend easily 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, literally 3 years, working on a show and understanding what someone with little money wore in 1810. Someone what medium money wore in 1810. Someone with big money and what they wore in 1810. What they wore to sleep in, what they wore to cook or clean in, what they wore as day wear, and what they wore to go out in. Everything matters. Everything counts. Studying the period of something is everything. You have to know. And a good example is I did Miss Saigon High School Edition in the Philippines last summer. Not only was I taking a war script somewhere overseas, I was taking it to an island that was right across this big ocean from Vietnam. We were so close. I had to be 100% correct in my uniform.
The proximity like makes everything like you have to be more sure.
Yep.
Like also time-wise, like if you're doing something from the 80s, there are tons of people alive who still remember the 80s, and so
I lived it.
And so, like, if you get it wrong, there'll be a ton of people who be like, "You got that wrong."
You have
Nobody
no
wore
idea
that.
who. I have people I don't know who write me and say, "I think you missed this one," and I'm like, "Well, I might have, but."
Join the club.
I
Yes.
know, join the club.
Yes.
It's like,
These emails,
okay.
man.
Oh, it's like, are you sure that was the color? And I'm like, I only spent 3 months researching it. I mean, I'll go back and see if I was wrong. And I could be wrong. I mean, I could have missed it.
My research trumps your drug-fueled hazy memories.
Thank you. I wasn't going to say that, but that's exactly what I want to say.
Oh, I don't write these things, but I do yell at them in the computer screen.
In my mind, that's exactly what I told them.
Yeah, totally.
But researching it, a history piece, is imperative. You have to research it. You have to understand. And I don't only research the costume, but I color research. What textiles were available then. It's hard to say where to go get it. New York City, I'm very blessed. I have the New York City Performing Arts Library. It's literally a block from my apartment. I can walk there any given day, but if I have to watch myself, because if I go, it's like a hole. I fall into it.
You have to have a lot of time.
Oh, I mean, even if I'm hurrying up and looking for something, it's 3 or 4 hours, because you just dig in. And that's it. You're in there. You're doing it. But like the colleges, CCM, the University of Iowa, big reference library, you can go online and you can ask for certain materials through them. Like if you go to the Performing Arts Library, you could go into Edith Head's costume collection, her actual drawings and sketchings and renders, and you can see her notes. And you can see what she did for Singing in the Rain. You can see what she did for all these beautiful movies and stage things that she did way back in the day. So there's a lot of references, but the majority of them is you're going to find. I love Pinterest.
So can my students take a peek at your Pinterest boards?
Oh, have them, absolutely.
All right, then I'm going to drop a link in the description box.
Absolutely, because there's just so many theater. We don't do them by period, we do them by show.
Okay.
That way you can go to the show and see what. Then they're not only just my stuff, they're things that people have done all over the world. The biggest misconception is Broadway is only in New York City. Now, Broadway is in New York City, but theater is all over the world. I have people that do theater in Asia, in Shanghai, and in Berlin, in the Philippines, in London, in Sacramento, in San Francisco, in LA. I've got plenty of costumers that I know that work down at the Hollywood Bowl. But it's everywhere. You want to grow where you're planted. And if you're planted in the middle of Oklahoma or Kentucky or Texas, tons of theater. And everyone asks me, I really want to do this, especially younger, mostly high school, college and high school. But I just don't know where to get any experience. I'm like, go work for a children's theater, because they'll be blood honest with you. They'll tell you whether it fits, whether they like it, and you can't say anything to them because they're kids. I mean, they're going to be like, I don't like that. because and then after
Oh
they
my
get
God,
on,
that's so smart. Yeah, because like, what are you gonna do with kids? Like, they're kids.
Yeah.
They're totally honest.
they're totally on, or they're going to look at you and say, "I love this," and you might have.
And that's the best coming from someone who's totally honest.
Especially if you put 2 minutes into it.
Oh my God.
I just did a workshop of Aladdin Junior before it's put out, Aladdin Junior Kids, at PS 124 in New York City, which is a beautiful school in Chinatown. And every child from grade 3 to 5 wrote me a handwritten thank you note.
Oh my God.
The pictures are priceless. But it was wonderful. But yeah, work for a children's theater. They're amazing to work with.
Yeah, I say this all the time, but it's like, you don't need to be in a big city to get experience.
No.
Like, my opera house experience was in Anchorage, Alaska.
Perfect.
And I lucked out because Anchorage actually really cares about their performing arts, and so they did devote money to the opera house. But yeah, Anchorage is far from a big fashion place, big costume
But it's
Broadway
still important.
place. But I learned so much that still applies to me.
Yep.
So
it's very important where you are. That little tiny show or that great big show on a little tiny stage is still important.
yeah.
So make it the best, you know? And I know costumers all over the world. I mean, literally all over the world. And I have a little group on Facebook. I just started it, which is so cool because everyone's asking to join in. And most of them are small town costumers. And they're like, okay, how do I do this? How do I do that? And a lot of times, Zoe, I learn from them.
Big question that I get, do you need a costume designer's portfolio? And if so, what should be in it?
It's very important to have a costume designer's portfolio. You need the costume, the renderings, how you started, and how it progressed and where it landed, starting with the sketch, ending with the render. You need the character and what they were doing, because sometimes the character doesn't do the script. Yes.
When you say render, you mean the actual garment?
No, I mean the final look of the final look of the actual garment. Then you need a picture of someone in the garment. Yep, very important. A lot of people, they just draw. Oh, we didn't build it out. And I'm like, all right, do you realize you just drew 12 pleats going this way with a bunch of tabs going over them, a sheer lace and tulle going over it? That's impossible to build. You can draw all you want, but you got to build it. You got to make sure what you draw, you can actually build. That, and a lot of kids, they get all hung up on making it fancy, add extra, but then they can't build it. And then they try to hand it to someone to build, and they're like,
see,
what did you just hand me?
This is what I'm talking about, because students ask me all the time, Zoe, do fashion designers have to learn how to sew? And it's like, I don't sew every day. As a designer, I handed everything off to a sample maker, but I take the knowledge that I learned from learning how to sew and apply it to my designs.
Absolutely.
All the time.
You have to understand the seams. You have to understand how it fits. You have to learn how shoes fit. You have to learn the fabric of the shoes. You have to learn if the hat is going to fit with the outfit. I mean, everything. You have to know the fabrics, and you have to know how to sew, and you have to know body proportions.
So you don't want to look at a portfolio where they didn't build costumes. Because they gotta know. They
have to build costumes. If they want to work in a now, here's the thing I get all the time. Well, I just want to be the designer. Okay, you have fun with that, because it's only going to take you about 20 years to work there, and you don't. It doesn't work that way. You can't, the fashion world, I'm sure there's, this is my design, this is beautiful. Now you go sew it. Even though all the good fashion people I know, they know how to sew. They understand seams. They understand the fit of a garment. Same
it makes them more creative and better designers overall, having that knowledge behind them.
And they can build on it.
Yeah.
Well, this fit didn't work, but let's stay with this and let's add or delete this. Same with costuming. But if they want to be a costume designer, they have to know everything. I mean, everything. You're not only designing the costumes, you're managing the shop. You're not the shop manager, but you're there. I go into a shop and I don't leave. A lot of costume designers, they go in, they drop it off, and they move on. I want to be in the process. I want to make my name's on it. I want to make sure it's exactly the way I wanted it to be. Because, you know, every costume shop is different. They build differently. Most of them are amazing. But some of them, if you're traveling and you go to a shop that's in the middle of another state, and they're using a local university as their costume shop, you want to be on hands-on. But most of the people that teach at the universities that I've worked at, oh, they're incredible. They're absolutely incredible. They know everything, especially in the costume shop. So they have to know patterning, they have to know draping, they have to know flat patterning. They have to know how to draw it, they have to know how to put it, fit it, they have to know how to put it, the fabrics to it, and then they have to put it on the person and put it to stage. Then they have to wash it. So there's a lot of steps. It's just not, oh, here's the sketch, go make it. Very seldom. So
that's like you work all the way up to that.
Oh, there in the costume world, there are first hands, there's drapers, there's the pull of seamstresses, there's the fitters, there's a lady who does nothing but hold my pins. You know, there's someone, and there's a job for everybody.
That's so funny because I got a question where they said, and I quote, "Is there a job title for someone that helps construct / flesh out the actual costume rather than actually creating the concept? If so, what would that job title be?"
That's the costume shop. You're
Just
not doing the
working in the
concept. They hand the design, the picture over. Here's the render.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it has to look like. But I'm the type of person that when I render, I want a notch color here and I want it 3 inches down. I want a welt here and I want 2 down here, and this is how long I want them. I'm very specific. Even though my renders look, you can see the picture of how it looks, I do a detailed list on the side just so we're on the same page. Because I don't want it to come back to me and be off. That, oh, we didn't put welting here. I need that for a pocket watch. Because I'm the one that read the script.
You are.
Yeah, and in the script, he pulls it out of his pocket. They pulled the pocket watch out of his front pocket.
Yeah.
It has to be there. When the script calls for a specific costume, she threw the cloak over top of her. I have to have a cloak for her to wear. So even though it shows a cloak hanging off the back of her costume, they might not see that as a piece that needs to be built. So I'm very specific about what I need or what I want. And a lot of times, if I do have time to work on something, I will sit down and build it out before I even render it to see if it looks okay.
Do costume designers use flats?
Very seldom. Not usually.
Just like on the figure?
A figure, mostly draping. And if it's a good shop manager who understands body and they can sit down and just cut. Yeah.
And you don't use elongated fashion figures?
No.
Like standard 8-head?
Yeah, 8-head. And sometimes we have this trick where, well, I have this trick where if I've got a difficult or a tricky body, that maybe the proportions are just way heavier at the top or way heavy at the middle or way heavy at the bottom. Or this, I have someone that I costumed that didn't have a leg. He had a prosthetic leg, and so and he wanted the prosthetic leg to show.
Oh, okay.
So it didn't matter. But you've got to take that into consideration. I will angle them like a silhouette against the wall, and I'll do my own croquis of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I want that figure, and then I scale it. Then I'm like, okay, put it. They're 4'2", and their waist is 46.
Okay.
So that it's not hard. It's just different. You
do have to incorporate the body and the character into your
the costume and the sketching.
Right.
Yeah. So my render is going to be someone shorter.
Right.
And they're going to be someone a little wider, and then that way I can see what it's going to look like. If I put it on a 11 head, oh my gosh, it's going to look like $1 million. No matter what it is, it's going to look like $1 million.
Yeah,
but,
which is why we
exactly. We can make
it's such a cheat.
Yeah, we can make it a 22 head if we really wanted to, and move on out.
I tell my students, I'm like, listen, design's not very good unless it looks good on a flat.
That's right. You flat it, then you're going to see what it looks like. But But getting the proportions right on the render is important because we have to render children all the time. There's too many shows out there that have kids in them. I mean, some of the kids are their leads, and they have to look like $1 million too. And you can't have a costume that eats them. That's the thing about it. You put them on stage, and if the costume is like a big coat and it just eats them, you don't even see them. I mean, you only see the head, maybe a little flesh of the arms. Yeah, and you're like, oh gosh, what a mistake. So, and I'm a biggie stickler when I go see any theater. The first thing I look at is, are the pants hemmed on the guys? And does the guy's suit jacket fit where it's supposed to be? Because so many just throw a suit on the guy. It's like, no. We got to make that suit look good and fit well. Yeah, that's part of the look for this person. Yeah.
So the portfolio, you don't need mood boards. You need the script notes, right?
Oh, script is everything. Script is everything.
So, like, if you're talking about the portfolio, so you can have, like, the title of the piece and then, like, notes on the costumes and what, the costume designer needed to take into consideration, drawings, photos of the garments on a person.
Absolutely.
But you don't need mood boards. You don't need fabric boards because it's
already handed to you. Because
okay.
in theater, the mood board has already been set by the designers, which is the costume designer, the lighting person, the set person, the props person. We've already got our color board. We've already been given our directive. This is the color board we're staying in. So now you go and take it and do it. And
but would the person creating a portfolio for finding work have to include that information?
No, not necessarily.
Because a lot of the time, students, they have no work experience, so they have to make something up. So
it's a portfolio piece.
Yeah. So they can just I love this play, so I'm going to costume this play for my portfolio.
Exactly.
And then they can just have the script, story notes, and then the drawings, and
they
then
can do that. They can
do the garment.
That.
Yeah.
And if they wanted to, then you should put your own coloring and why you chose those colors.
Yeah.
This is my thought process. And that's what it really is. Can they think it through and working with a director, I have to get inside their head. Because sometimes it's hard to get someone to really tell you what they're wanting. Just make it pretty. No, that doesn't work. Just make it pretty never works. I need details. And time is always of the essence. They're detailing me, and I have to detail it back in the sketch. And sometimes I can take every word they've given me, put it in the sketch, and they look at it and they're like, oh, that's not what I was thinking. And I'm like, okay, let's start again. 40 renders later, you're like, I'm done with this.
What's the tightest turnaround you've ever done?
Oh, 24 hours in a piece or two. And, oh God, I know. You just have no idea. It's always tight. It's always running tight. And a lot of times it's because the character changes, the scene changes, the play changes. I mean, I've seen plays go to Broadway and 2 months later they change costumes after being on Broadway for 2 months. Oh, that wasn't working, so we went in and switched it. Like, okay. I'm glad that wasn't me, but okay. So you never know.
I have a fashion designer girlfriend who texted me earlier today because she had just sewn 12 welt pockets in an hour, and I literally typed to her, that is my worst nightmare.
Yeah, that's a nightmare. That's a nightmare. That truly is. And it's like, oh, well, this person fell out of the show that was 5'9", and she was a size 4. Her understudy's going in, and she's 5'2", and she's a size 12. Now make it work. You're like, okay, I think I can do this. You have to do it. You don't have any chance. You don't have a choice.
So let's get specific with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your educational background and earlier in your career? Because I know you were in fashion and had your own business, and then I don't exactly know when you transitioned into costume or why.
So funny. My degree's in pattern making. I did most of all of that a long time ago. But I've always been the child that tore things apart and got in big trouble for it. It's like, I didn't want it to look that way.
You're like my third guest who's had that childhood.
Yes, and it's like, oh, why'd you do that, or why'd you do that? And it's like, oh, I don't know why. I just wanted it different. So I was a bored mom with 2 little babies, and my husband worked full time, and I said I want to start my own little kids clothing line. This was 28 years ago, before everybody started to do it. I did it a long time ago, and I did. I'm like, I can sew, I know how to do this, and I mean, it wasn't great, it was just small, and I really didn't put 2 shakes into it. I thought, I'll put it on them, a couple little boutiques where we live, see if it sells. It does. Give me a little income, keep me busy, keep my mind from going crazy, and I don't have to listen to children's stuff all day long, because I loved being a mom, but I really missed working for something that was something that was mine.
And this was in Ohio?
No, this was in South Carolina. I went with my husband to where he was working, and we were down there. We weren't down there long. And the next thing I know, that little clothing company just blew up. I mean, literally blew up. I was getting orders from 2 big catalog houses. And here we were making it in my living room. We were literally our own production company in the living room. And I was calling in everybody I know to come help. Oh, yeah, I'll give you free clothes. Just come and do it. Blah, 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 blah. And they were all had kids. They're like, yeah, are you kidding? I'll come and work for that. And we owned it for a long time. And then I sold it. I'm done with it. And my oldest daughter at the time was in 5th, 6th grade. And she goes, oh, Mom, I auditioned for Annie. And I got Annie. Now, I was in Cleveland on a business trip, and 5 hours away from my hometown. And I said, oh, that's nice. That's great. I mean, I loved theater, but I was never really a theater person. I mean, I liked it, but not like the real theater people do. And I said, okay. I said, that's really cool. She goes, and the director's like, if you want to, you can make my dress. I literally made it that next day when I got home, because I thought she needed it the next day. Oh. And I sent it to school, and she had it. And the director's an old friend of mine. She called me, and she said, oh, my God, Shirley, can you make, all the costumes? Next thing I know, I'm costuming all over. I mean, literally all over. So I won this award at this junior theater festival in Atlanta, where we went down there and did all this. And the next thing I know, I'm in New York City, and I'm around everything, and I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to jump. It's time. It's time. And my youngest daughter's like, well, you're not doing it without me. I'm coming with you. So, and my older 2 were already in college. It was a whole new ballgame for us. So we literally moved there thinking we'd be there for like a year, maybe. We'll go give it a try. We'll have fun. We'll shop. We'll see shows. We'll go to the museum. She's a big museum person, big museum kid. I mean, literally had no idea. Next thing I know, costuming everywhere. But like I said, Broadway's not only there. Going to the Philippines, going to Australia, going to, all over America, literally everywhere. And I also got in with the Junior Theater Festival, which happens in Sacramento, which I just came from. And I work with them on a lot of different little things, but all related to costuming. I'm not a writer. I'm not a person that sings, obviously. And I stay in my lane. I costume. It's what I do. And then I got involved with the National Educational Theater Society, which is EDTA, and the National Thespian Association. And they're just as big and just as huge. And through them, I teach workshops all over the country. And they have a National Thespian Association, which is the International Thespian, for a whole week in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I taught the PD, the professional development classes, in everything costuming to directors, which is amazing because we can start Google Classrooms. We can talk all year long. They send problems, they send questions, and we can discuss things. And through them, they actually have a costuming, not a track, but it's called an individual event. And these kids that have bigger high schools, they actually have costuming classes in a high school.
That's impressive.
Oh, it's beyond impressive. I'm like, oh my gosh. They come with these individual events and they get adjudicated and they have storyboards and they have guidelines and they have to render it and that's just costume design. Then they have the whole costume construction track where they have to build the piece out. These are kids that work on pieces for 3 or 4 months. And, you know, some of them are beyond your wildest dreams. You turn them inside out and you're like, you Frenched every seam on the inside. Why? Well, I just wanted it to be perfect. Now, in the theater world, it's not so much like that. I mean, it fits and it's good, but there's no French seams underneath it, unless it's opera. And they do a lot of those, a lot of corsets.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because the consumer, like in fashion, the consumer is the person who wears it. But in costume, the consumer is the audience and not the actor who wears it.
Right, whole different consumer audience.
Yeah, the focus is the consumer experience and not the actor's experience.
Exactly. Did it come across? But that's how it started. I just started doing it, and now I don't think I could ever go back to fashion. I'd love to. I'd love to go back to fashion, but I don't know what I would do. Costuming and fashion are in the same way that everything is subjective. You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. And there is no in between. You walk out and you're like, oh, I love the costumes. They were so amazing. Or it's like, those costumes are horrible. Same thing with fashion. You walk into one of the stores, one of the box stores, and you're like, oh, I love this season. Then the next season or, you know, halfway through it, you're like, oh, what happened? I don't love it anymore. And it's the same way with theater. Everybody has their own opinion on what it looks like. Yeah. So you can't own anything. You have to have very broad shoulders. You have to have no heart because you will get every criticism under the sun. And you can't work with everybody.
You know what I tell people? I'm like, I'm not actually fat. My skin is just this thick.
Yeah. And I've earned it. I've earned every inch of it and every gray hair. And I'm going to keep it.
So how do you find jobs? That was like, I think the #1 question is, how do you find work? Is there certain job boards? Is it hustling and networking? Is it cold calling directors? Like what is the thing that works?
A lot of it is you have to get in an intern for a costume designer or a production company. You can be a PA, an assistant on any. You don't even really have to work in costume. It helps to work in costuming. You can work backstage as a dresser. You can work with the children to be a child wrangler, to watch the kids backstage during the show. If you can get your foot in the door any way you can.
Just take some crap job.
Take some crap job.
Just so people can see your face.
See your face, and then you get in, and they realize. And if you're working on a movie set or a TV set, they probably have 5 or 6 people shopping for them. Because it's a whole different ballgame than actual live theater. And you get hired as a PA or an intern or whatever they want to call it as a shopper or as a runner. And that job is insane. It's so hard. It really is because you're out shopping, you're out building, you're out pulling. Then you have to find studio services. You have to understand all that lingo. But it's a whole new process. And if you can get your foot in one of those doors, and it's not hard to get your foot in one of those doors. You just have to know through the trade papers that are theater or that are film. Just like the actors, they have to do their footwork. You have to get out there and do the daily grind. And then when you get that job, you have to be the best person on that job. You have to be irreplaceable. You have to be you can't be lazy. There's no room for laziness at all. You can weed out the ones that you can tell that aren't used to working.
Yeah, because, style is subjective and design is subjective, but work ethic is not.
Work ethic is not.
No, they'll see you either have the hustle while you're getting everyone coffee and want to hire that work ethic for other things. Or they won't.
I have people that have come in and worked with me, and they're like, okay, do you want me to go walk your dog now? Anything to keep that job. Anything to understand that that's the most important. And then you've got ones that say, or you've got the ones that sit on their phone all day. Downfall. It's the downfall of any workroom.
They're waiting for you to assign them some real design work.
Yeah, and their real design work is sewing 80 buttons onto red coat jackets.
Yeah.
There you go. There's your pile. And that's happened before. It's the one on their phone that when the job is offered up, they're too busy on their phone and they don't understand that the job was even offered up. I don't let anyone on their phone do costume show. All phones put aside. You can be on your phone on your lunch hour or on your break. If there's an emergency, you set your phone right beside you. I understand. I get it. I have a family. It never fails. I go to town. The dog is sick. My dog ate 3 pills of Singular one time when I was out of town. And of course, I had to call their vet and I had to get out.
Last time I went out on business without my husband, he broke his shoulder.
Oh, thank you.
His humerus is in 5 different pieces right now.
Saw that. That's just sad. You can't go anywhere, Zoe.
Because the time I went on business alone, right before that, he broke the couch, and that's why I only have 1 couch right now.
You have to have a stern talking with him. One business trip, I was on the plane from Texas, almost landed in LaGuardia, and my middle daughter said the lamp fell on my foot, and I'm on my way to the emergency room to get stitches. Happens every time. It doesn't happen every time. It happens a lot. So I'm like, before I walk out the door, I'm like, please, just don't
do anything. Can you just lay down the
whole
time? Oh my God,
that's it.
Just stay in bed the whole time.
Don't do anything. I don't want you to joke. I mean, it seems like that, but I travel so much, and that's another thing for a costumer. You got to be willing to go. You got to be willing to go where the work is. I travel a lot. Since January, I've been in Kansas. I've been in Atlanta. I've been in Virginia. I was supposed to go to Maine, but I actually got sick for 2 days. And I had to cancel.
I think that's really
and now
encouraging.
I'm in Sacramento.
I think that's really encouraging for a lot of my audience because everyone just assumes that you have to be in a big urban metropolis to get work, but there's theater everywhere.
Everywhere.
And so if you can find work everywhere, there's things going on.
You find your niche. You find what works for you. It might not be a job that someone else already has. My job, I pretty much created for myself because what I do is kind of different from what a normal designer would do. I mean, there's most of the designers I know, they're at smaller theaters working all over the world or equity houses working all over the world.
What's an equity house?
Equity house is a house that is equity union rules. Okay. And you are full equity house or you're a scale equity house, which is like LORT, and they only do certain equity contracts, like 1 or 2. And then you have a full equity house. Say you go into any house in New York City. It's all ran by union and equity or union contract, and they do all the work. Like, you don't change a light bulb. You don't move a ladder. You don't pull a drape. You stay in your lane. You do your job. But then when you go into a smaller little town, they might not have any equity people.
You mentioned trade papers a second ago, so I only know the fashion ones. What are some separate costume trade papers?
Yes. Okay. There is Playbill has their own. Okay. Oh gosh, if I forget some, they'll get mad at me. There's all the ones in New York are Playbill. There is Offstage jobs. Okay. Great little resource. But here's the issue. There's some in New York City and some in LA that you have to be already in the business before you're allowed on the group. Okay. Because they don't want 9,000 people coming that don't really know what they're doing. Right. Because their time is money. Right. Yeah. And they don't have time to train them. But getting there, every town has a Broadway series that comes through. If you go to that venue, even the smaller towns have non-equity tours. Every tour travels all over the world. In San Francisco, what's your venue here that you would go see a Broadway show at? A traveling Broadway show. I mean, I don't know.
I've only been to the opera in San Francisco.
Okay. We were just in Sacramento, and Aladdin was going to be there. Cats was going to be there. Lightning Thief was going to be there. So all these shows come in. You can go to the stage manager of the stage, not the person over the theater, but the person over the stage. And you can say, do you have a call board to where you need someone to come in and help load in, load out, do wigs, do costumes, do laundry? And those are paying jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know how much they pay in each state, but that's a great foot in the door. Not only are you getting valuable experience, every college campus, they work the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Great place to do it. But that tour, who probably have originated in New York City, you're getting to meet everybody backstage at that tour. You're getting to meet the wardrobe person that traveled with the tour because you're working side by side with them. Great way to make connections. And then they might say, well, you know, I heard this show might have an opening, or I heard this show might have an opening. But that's a great way to get into the door. But LinkedIn has costume design and assistants and PAs, glass door or glass ceiling, one of those, they have that also. It's actually a thing that you want to get in and work your way up.
Mm-hmm.
I very seldom do I see, we have an ad for a costume designer. It's always a shop manager.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of summer stock theater all over the world. Mm-hmm. Opera houses, Shakespeare, theater, kids theater, high school theater, community theater. They all have summer productions. Go get involved. You know, I like to sew. And, you know, this is what I would like to do. But whatever you do, if you're offering and willing to do it, make sure you follow through with it and make sure you do it. A lot of people are like, oh, I want to go do that and I'm going to do it. Never do it. I mean, they want to do it. And they voiced it that they want to do it, but it never came to fruition. So you got to make sure you're following through with every commitment you put through.
What is the financial process of being a costume designer? Are they given a budget by the production, then paid for the service after? Do they still receive royalties if a movie is highly successful, especially for fantasy movie costumes where it would be very difficult to sell or auction?
That's a long question.
I read that verbatim because that was what they...
All right, costume designer. Everything is pretty much set by the producer.
Okay.
This is the designer. Everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's one budget.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's your fee, and here's the costume budget, and here's the costume shop budget. It's broken down. You just don't know if it's the production. Once you sign your soul over, literally, they belong to them. It belongs to them. It's theirs.
Have you ever heard of a costume designer getting royalties? I've never heard of that.
No.
I know actors get royalties, but it's like you see their face over and over again.
I think it depends on what show, because I do know a few production companies that do give royalties to everyone in the first workshop of a show.
Okay.
But not a lot. We're
Yeah.
talking like 0.5%.
So just in general, no one should be relying on royalties to retire
no, you won't
on.
make money on
Yeah.
costume royalties. There's no such thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what
because
thought.
you can change a seam, or you can change a button placement, and it's yours now. You can change. There's many lawsuits.
That's how clothing works.
Fashion.
Yeah.
Look at the lawsuits between like 10 years ago. Was it two big names, and it was over one look, and I had it. Like, no. And neither one of them won. I mean, it was a no-win situation because they moved something over or raised the waistline or lowered it. So it's the same way.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean... The thing that I have a big issue with is when people go to do a show after it's been on Broadway and we're going to imitate the costumes perfectly. Are you stealing rights? Because it belongs to them now. That's their look. I feel like everyone should make something their own. You can use it as a guideline, but just like choreography, just like music, that belongs to the person who made it. I mean, even though it isn't really theirs, but it's the company that owns it now. And, you know, there's really you can only do Hello Dolly one certain way, and the big hats and the big things. But you can make the fabrics your own, and you can change it up a little bit. But it's still going to look almost the same. But you can give it its own personality. And, you know, and I think that's why working with younger groups, sometimes I let the kids dictate. I'm like, where would you like this to be set? Because there's some shows you can put anywhere. And they're like, oh, well, but put a farm in space, and they're all going to be in Hawaiian shirts. I'm like, okay, let's go with it. Yeah, you do what you go with. You do what you have. You work with what you have. But As for royalties, no. But now I've seen many production companies sell the costumes after a show.
But does the costume designer get any of that money?
No.
Because it's the producer who paid for it, right?
Yeah, you've already been paid for your services.
I just want to make sure that they're getting a sense of reality. Like, I know, because like I've had comments from people saying, you know, that wasn't very encouraging of you. Like, I don't feel encouraged to go into fashion anymore. And I said, my job isn't to encourage people to go into fashion. It's to give you a real industry view of what you can expect.
You can ask anyone in my classes. If you want a real look at what I do, I'm going to tell you. If you don't want reality, go do something else. Because it's not my job to sugarcoat it when it is hard. I work nonstop. Anyone who knows me knows I'm constantly working. I work 2 years out. My schedule is booked 2 years out. So I don't have time to stop. I have to keep working. Yeah, even when I was sick and couldn't go to Maine, I was working sick in my apartment.
You and I are like those people. Like, we don't have hobbies. We just like what we work on.
Oh, yeah. I love what I work on. My only big hobby is I love going to museums that have exhibits of fashion and costuming.
Girl, that's like related to our work. I don't think that counts. Because I love doing that too.
Well, it's so funny because they have that show, Project Runway. Love Project Runway. And
was that sarcasm?
No, it is. I mean, I do love it. I love it as a show. It's fun to watch. But in the costuming world, here's how my analogy of it. You've got 48 hours. You've got $300. You've got the best equipment in the world. You don't have a child or a husband or a job or an emergency or cleaning and laundry and the dog.
Your giant dog.
Big dog. I mean, and friends, and I love my friends. I love being around a lot of friends. You don't have anyone pulling you to do nothing.
You have no responsibilities at all.
All you have to do is create one dress. In my circle of my friends that are true costumers or, people that love costuming, our running hashtag is what would I do with the other 46 hours? I would be the one on TV laying on the couch drinking Dr. Pepper and eating lemon juice. And everyone would be like, are you kidding me?
Please go on the show. Oh my gosh, Shirley, please go on the show.
I have been begged to go on the show.
Oh my God.
The person that I'm the kindest to in any theater setting is the custodial people. Yeah. The kindest.
They have the crappiest job.
Well, not only that, but if they find a glove that costs $800 and I can't replace overnight, or if they find a necklace or an earring that accidentally got kicked under something, they're either going to hand it to you, but if you're mean to them, they're going to throw it in the trash. Yeah. But I'm nice to them because their job will save me a lot of heartache. Mm-hmm. And if I can ease their job, and I will offer them coffee before I offer anybody else. Mm-hmm. I'm going out, I'm getting coffee. Would you like me to bring you something back? You can ask any theater house. I do it all the time. Mm-hmm. But they're going to be my new best friend in that house. I have people that hide costume pieces. We didn't like it, so we didn't want to wear it. And I'm like, where is it? Well, I don't know, we couldn't find it. That janitor will find it, or that custodial person will find it. They will find it.
They have the keys to everything.
They can get in any room, any trash can, any corner, and they know the place like the back of their hand. So they will find it for me.
That's true. They know the place better than anybody.
I will say, we're kind of missing this green scarf thing. If you see it, I'll be on the lookout for it. And 99% of the time, they bring it back to me within 24 hours. I found it. It was 3rd floor, behind the girls' bathroom, in a trash can with a bunch of books stacked in front of it. Oh, that was a good place to stash it if you didn't want to wear it. But that doesn't happen often. But when it does, that custodial person is going to be the first to let you know.
All right. So that wraps up today's chat with Shirley. Please drop questions. we had to filter through so many questions, but you know, if you want some clarification on something, drop me a comment below, or if you're nice, you should thank Shirlee for visiting and answering all your many questions. She is awesome. And where can they find you? Do you want people to find you on the internet?
Sure. Yeah. Internet's better than my phone number. Yeah,
Okay.
Way better than my phone number.
I'm not giving anybody her phone number, but I will drop her social media in the description box below.
Yeah. But yeah, please, you have anything to ask me, ask. You can ask Zoe, you can ask me, you can PM me on Facebook, you can PM me on Instagram. I'd be more than happy to help you. I won't do it for you, but I will help you. I will at least give you some guidance on how to go this way or that way. I have tons of people that when I go to a festival or go to a conference, they all want to get in. I'm thinking about starting a Google Classroom with just costumers, so we might take the Facebook room also to a Google Classroom, which is so neat because it's more of a private, and we can really get into discussions in there because that seems to be a really good way to communicate. Yeah, I love that.
Okay.
Yeah. But thank you for having me.
This was so much fun.
Oh, gosh.
This was mostly just to get you to hang out with me. Yeah, I mostly invited Shirlee so she could just like blow me up.
I did. The questions were sent to me ahead of time, and now we both, we got them. And she's going to pay me once I walk out the door. Pay me in Bitcoins.
I still don't know how Bitcoin works.
I don't even know what it is. You can pay me in Dr. Pepper, that's for sure.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, crazy. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Please thank Shirlee for visiting my studio in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.